Okay, so this is our last video for this unit, how organisms are able to repair an injury. So I know you're all wicked excited that this is the last video. In this video, we're going to look at your five senses, or an organism's five senses, and how your body uses those senses to take stimuli or outside things and have your brain figure out what all those things outside your body and your environment mean. Your body will also respond to stimuli from inside. Like if you get scared and your heart rate quickens for the flight or fight response, that is your body responding to internal stimuli. But with your five senses, it's usually what we call external or outside the body stimuli. So we're going to look quickly at the five senses, which you all probably are very familiar with. So we have sight. We, humans, we see with our eyes. Many other organisms have eyes as well, too. Some insects have more than two. So they are out there so that we can bring in light and use the amount of light we see and kind of take that and make pictures, and our brain makes the images that we see so that we can understand our world using sight. Some organisms have eyes, but they're not very good eyes. So there's also some interesting things about other animals out there and their eyes and how they use them or how they don't use them, because it's not a very good sense for them. It doesn't help them in their environment. But for us, it helps us quite a bit navigate our environment, understand what we're seeing, understand who we're talking to, what we're looking at. It helps us get around. Then we have taste. Some things taste good, other things taste bad. And so our tongue actually has different parts of it respond to different types of tastes, and that's where you get some of the faces you make when you eat food, because I know I'm a picky eater. So certain things that I try, if I venture out and try new things, I definitely have some interesting faces, and I'm sure some of you do too, with foods that you don't like, or foods that are too sour or sweet or salty. I'm sure we all make some kind of interesting faces, but taste is another one that allows us to bring in different things from our environment, not just humans, but other organisms that sort of lead by taste and smell to sort of find their food source. Touch. So not all organisms have hands like we do. Others may only have feet or paws or talons. So they don't all use hands the way that we use. And we also have skin, which is like the largest organ in our body, that also can sense touch, or if things are moving on us, like if you get a mosquito crawling on you or an ant crawling on you in the summertime, you definitely can feel it because you get that little tickle sensation. But other organisms have different methods for figuring out if things are in their environment, such as they have to run away from, or they sense a change through vibrations in the ground because you're stomping around, so the ants know to scurry away, or if the wind changes, because a lot of other organisms have hair that responds to touch. Also, if you have cats and dogs, their whiskers play a huge role in them being able to tell what's around them so that they don't bump into things. And that's why their whiskers are pretty thick and tough. Smell. We use smell all the time. When we're sick, humans, when we're sick, our smeller doesn't work that well. But it does work for most of the time. It's a good way to sense sometimes if there's danger. It's also used to smell pretty things, like we went and tagged our Christmas tree this past weekend, and they actually were smelling pretty good out there, which is one of my favorite smells for the holiday season. And other animals, like a dog, has really good sense of smell. and can smell things from far away, can chase after them. My dog definitely lives for her nose because she can smell quite a bit, and she'll go and go and go by just smelling. So they have a really honed in sense of smell. And then hearing or listening. So we hear through our ears, and then there's a lot of things going on inside our ears. Other animals have different ways of sensing sound, which is mostly just vibrations, in order to bring those in to their brain to figure out what is going on in their environment, and mostly to figure out how to get away from predators or how to find food is what most organisms are using their senses for. Whereas humans, we don't need to. We're not hunters and gatherers anymore, so we can go to the grocery store to get our food rather than find ways to get it from our environment. So we have to look at all these in the big picture. How does an organism's body systems work with its senses to figure out how to repair an injury, okay? Because that is our phenomenon. How are we going to repair this injury? So when an organism is injured, it gets a scrape or a cut, you feel pain. So what body systems are working with that? Well, your nervous system is going to work right away and send signals to your brain that there is pain somewhere. Why do you think it's important for your body to tell you if it's in pain? And that's just so you can stop probably doing what you're doing and figure out what's wrong so you don't further injure yourself. And then if depending on if your little cut or scrape is deep enough, you may bleed. Well, that's your circulatory system, and it's pumping blood throughout your body because you need oxygen, but it's also a way to begin the healing process of your scrape. So what other kind of senses might let an organism know that is injured? Don't just think of humans, but think about what other senses other organisms might need that don't get the medical attention that we kind of get, or animals that live in the wild. So, again, organisms are going to gather information from their environment using their senses. And this information that they gather is called a stimulus because it makes a response. You respond to those different things happening within your environment, okay? So remember the story of Mike and Jerry at the beginning of this unit? And Mike fell out of the tree, he broke his leg, and that was the phenomenon we were working with. How does an organism repair an injury? You also wrote little stories about one of your injuries and what happened. So how did his senses help him realize he was injured and that he was going to need help? So think about what we learned about the human body, what body systems and senses would Mike be using in order to know he was hurt and had to get help. So on your note sheet, you're answering pretty much this last question right here, based on 5 senses and what you now know about the different human body systems that we've been studying. Before you start working on that, though, I do have one more slide that I'd like you to think about. And you're going to be creating an investigation to sort of see how people's senses help them respond to stimuli. And so I put a list here of different ones that I've thought of, so it can kind of get you already brainstorming before we start this investigation and before you start working with your lab partner. So I'd like you to just spend a couple minutes looking at it, seeing if it sort of spurs any ideas in your mind. I'll also post this in the class when we begin looking at our investigation.